Now for Chapter 6, Weak Points and Strong Points. Sun Tzu's The Art of War, also translated as Strengths and Weaknesses, Exploiting Weaknesses, or Strategic Advantage. In Chapter 6, Sun Tzu explains the art of strategic maneuvering, how to exploit an enemy's weaknesses while protecting one's own vulnerabilities. He emphasizes that true mastery in warfare is not about brute force, but about attacking where the enemy is unprepared and avoiding direct confrontation when the odds are unfavorable. The key lesson of this chapter is, a great commander does not engage in a fair fight. He creates advantages and forces the enemy into disadvantageous positions. 1. The fundamental principle of combat: attack weakness, avoid strength. Sun Tzu states, a skilled warrior does not allow the enemy to know where to attack him. An army must move like water, flowing into open spaces, avoiding obstacles, and striking where the enemy least expects. 1.1. Why direct confrontation is risky. Attacking an enemy's strong position leads to heavy casualties. Instead, a smart general searches for gaps and vulnerabilities. Winning without fighting, or fighting only when certain of victory, is the highest form of strategy. Example: Blitzkrieg tactics, Wu Tu, 1939 to 1945. Instead of attacking the heavily fortified French Maginot Line, the German army bypassed it through Belgium, catching the Allies unprepared. 2. The 5 key principles of exploiting weakness. Sun Tzu outlines 5 ways a general can take advantage of an enemy's weak points. Principle. Explanation. Example. 1. Attack where the enemy is unprepared. Strike unexpected locations to catch the enemy off guard. Hannibal's crossing of the Alps, 218 BCE, shocked the Romans. Move where the enemy does not expect. Sudden, unpredictable movements create confusion. Napoleon's fast marches forced his enemies into chaotic reactions. 3. Avoid areas where the enemy is strongest. A direct attack on strong defenses is costly. The Mongols avoided castle sieges and struck weak supply lines instead. 4. Disrupt the enemy's plans. Force the opponent to react instead of letting them dictate the battle. The U.S. D-Day deception, 1944, tricked Germany into preparing for an invasion in the wrong location. 5. Make the enemy waste their strength. Drain the opponent's resources before engaging directly. The Spartans exhausted the Persians at Thermopylae by forcing them into a narrow pass. 3. The role of speed, deception, and maneuverability. Sun Tzu explains that a fast, unpredictable army will always have the advantage over a slow, rigid one. 3.1. The power of speed. Moving quickly forces the enemy to react on your terms. A slow army loses initiative, allowing the enemy to dictate the battle. Example: Genghis Khan's cavalry tactics. His forces could cover 100 miles a day, overwhelming slower enemies before they could react. 3.2. Deception and misdirection. Sun Tzu states, appear weak when you are strong, and strong when you are weak. Confuse the enemy so they waste their energy preparing for false threats. Example: the Ghost Army, World War II. The Allies used inflatable tanks, fake radio transmissions, and false troop movements to trick the Germans into misallocating their forces. 3.3. Positioning and terrain control. Control of the battlefield determines victory before fighting even begins. Sun Tzu compares a good general to a skilled chess player, always thinking several moves ahead. Example: the Battle of Austerlitz, 1805. Napoleon baited his enemies into attacking a weak-looking position. Once they committed, he struck from hidden strongholds and crushed them. 4. How to manipulate the enemy into making mistakes. Sun Tzu describes psychological warfare techniques that force the enemy into bad decisions. Tactic. Historical example: feign disorder. The enemy rushes in carelessly. The Mongols pretended to retreat, then counterattacked. Dangle bait. The enemy overextends in pursuit of an easy win. The Battle of Marathon, 490 BCE. Greeks lured Persians into a trap. Create confusion. The enemy becomes disorganized and weak. Hannibal's double envelopment at Cannae. Disrupt supply lines. The enemy starves before battle. The American Civil War's Union Army cut Confederate rail lines. 5. The unpredictability of war. Always stay adaptable. Sun Tzu warns that even the best plans must be flexible. Hash 5.1 Rigidity is the death of an army. No plan survives first contact with the enemy. Generals must adjust to new conditions immediately. Example, the Battle of Midway, 1942, World War II, the U.S. adapted to real-time intelligence, while Japan stuck to a rigid pre-planned strategy. The U.S. sank 4 Japanese aircraft carriers, shifting the war's momentum. HAS 5.2, the principle of infinite variation. A predictable army is an easy target. By constantly changing tactics, a commander can keep the enemy guessing and off balance. Example, guerrilla warfare, Vietnam War, 1955 to 1975. The Viet Cong used hit-and-run attacks, booby traps, and tunnels to avoid direct combat with the superior U.S. military. 6. Key takeaways from Chapter 6. 1. Attack weaknesses, not strengths. The best generals find gaps in the enemy's defenses rather than confronting them head-on. 2. Speed and deception are critical. A fast, unpredictable force will always have the advantage over a slow, rigid one. 3. Misdirection confuses the enemy. Use false movements, decoys, and feigned retreats to manipulate your opponent. 4. Force the enemy to make mistakes. Traps, psychological warfare, and resource depletion are as effective as direct battle. 5. Adaptability is key to victory. No strategy works forever. Commanders must be flexible and think ahead. 6. War is a game of maneuvering. The army that controls terrain, resources, and momentum will dominate the battlefield. Conclusion. Chapter 6, Weak Points and Strong Points, teaches that war is not about brute strength, but about intelligence, speed, and deception. A great commander chooses when and where to fight, forcing the enemy into positions of weakness. By controlling the battlefield, manipulating the opponent, and adapting to changing conditions, a skilled leader can achieve victory with minimal losses.